Tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I believe 3D printing is the future of miniatures board games and wargames hobbies. And that future is starting right now. Last week, or well, about 2 weeks ago by the time you watch this, I travelled to Adepticon with Artis Opus to help demonstrate their dry brushing techniques to thousands of attendees. And Adepticon is easily the largest miniature hobby convention in the world, and I'll qualify that statement shortly. And while I was there, I had planned to make a specific type of video, only to realise I just did not have enough time to complete this self-imposed challenge within the first couple of hours. So instead, as I wandered around on my lunch break, ruminating on what useful content I could bring you, I began to notice just how big the 3D printing boom has become in our hobby.
Hello guys, my name is Rasa and this is Warhammer videos.
So as I said, I had a plan for this content. I think it was a clever idea. You see, from what I've been told, a lot of painting competition elites will actually be painting their model up to the few hours before entry. So I wondered if I could start a competition level model just hours before entry. And that I think would have been a great way to show you the various people around a hobby event by having everyone get involved and use their products and techniques along the way. After all, I've made I went to Adepticon videos, and well, nobody watches I went to an event video. If you cared enough, you were there, and well, if you weren't there, do you really want to see what you missed? Probably not. Which is why I wanted to do a challenge, and that's a good way to promote the people who were there without actually going, hey, here's everyone who was there. That's boring, right? And I did start this. I got as far as having Dave from Mini Wargaming choose a model. I had Raf from Goonhammer build it. We borrowed a knife from Proacryl. We had Jeff from the painting phase choose a faction, and Marco Frazzoni decide a colour scheme, and Anarchy Models, who do some awesome stencils, primed it for us. And when I got back to the Artis Opus booth to ask Byron to lay down some primary colours, which he did, I realised just how busy the booth had gotten and remembered that my role there was to, help. So I kiboshed the idea due to lack of time, though I did have a 2-time Slayer Sword winner add more paint to that model later, so I might actually auction it off for charity or continue running with the idea over a series of conventions. I'm going to come back to how that progressed later. For now, let's get back to the 3D printing stuff, since I'm now very obviously a 3D printing channel, not a hobby channel. Aww. For so long I've seen it suggested that the main benefit of 3D printing in the hobby space is to get Warhammer models cheaper. But as time has gone on, the community has mostly responded to people who print their models and armies with a resounding, meh, whatever, yeah, you do you, don't really care, I'm going to keep buying the plastic ones because they're easier to work with, carry on. But there's no doubt the 3D printing revolution is creeping around from the sides and from behind Games Workshop, and it's working to attract more hobbyists at an increasing rate. Even if I myself initially saw 3D printing as an enhancement to my Warhammer hobby, as someone who can't sculpt, it allows me to make more customized Space Marines, but with less skill on my part. But as time's gone on, I've been steadily distracted away from Warhammer and towards some incredibly cool models which I just wouldn't find anywhere else, and well, they suit my personal tastes far more than what I've seen previously. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I said I'll qualify this, Adepticon is the largest miniature hobby convention in the world. Yeah, I've been to bigger conventions, sure, Gen Con, Spiel, and in June I'll be back at UK Games Expo. Those cons are considerably larger with a greater number of vendors, but they're miniature adjacent cons, mostly board games as the focus with a few miniature bits scattered around. This con, Adepticon, is about the hobby of painting miniatures, busts, and various other types of models in that wheelhouse and ballpark. It's about getting models intended to be painted, things to build models with, things to paint models with, and yeah, that includes the obvious things like brushes and paints. But it's also got other workspace tools like the red grass task lamp that we nicked off them to use to demo at our booth. And to me, all of that comes before the rooms upon rooms of gaming tables, along with all the people in various side rooms teaching painting classes. I mean, where else would you find someone cosplaying as Vince Venturella? The point is, other events are gaming first with a bit of hobby thrown in the vendors hall. This is hobby first, and by far my favourite con of the year. I'm exhausted, I'm jet lagged, but I loved every minute from dawn till dusk and well beyond. And last year, we hardly had any 3D printing related stuff at the event. Yeah, a couple of creators like CreatureCaster mentioned that they were going to start releasing STLs soon, and since then, I've been using them on my channel all year. This year, you could not miss Loot Studios, who had one of the largest and by far the brightest booths at the whole con. And they had a ton of their models, pro-painted and out on display. How none of these got stolen is beyond me. It honestly gives me more faith in humanity, and specifically our community, than I had before. And if you know my channel already, you should know who Loot Studios are. If not, they are one of the highest value STL subscription platforms on the market. Each month they release both sci-fi and fantasy bundles with dozens of characters in both 32 and 75mm scale. They have a load of scenery, a prop of some kind, which could be anything from a can holder to a ship, and busts of some of the main characters from that month too. And you also get huge loyalty rewards after 3, 6, 9 and 12 months too. Like this huge Vic Madbear mech they had painted up and on display. This was awesome. And all of that comes for $15 a month. If I play my cards right, I will be doing some work together with these guys soon, and I'm glad because at this value, they really do make my job easier when it comes to promoting them. You see what I mean, right? If you're after models to play with or paint or even just print, this subscription sells itself, and all I need to do is let people know it exists. And despite this being their first year, they got a really great spot in the vendors hall, being just after the Monument Hobbies team, and that's a stand which, well, nobody seemed to miss. The queues on day one were absolutely huge. Look, there's not a great link between Monument and 3D printing, except you can paint your models in their paints, and if you've seen my earlier videos, you'll know I love their paints. But more than anything, I just wanted to get these guys in the video because, well, we've made really good friends with them over the last few cons, and we've gone out for a couple of evening meals too. They are an absolutely great bunch of people with a great product, and if you don't believe me, then go and get a bottle of Bold Titanium White, then let me know in the comments if that didn't convince you to buy the whole rest of their range. But moving on and back to 3D printing, it was great to see One Page Rules in attendance too. Now again, these guys shouldn't need an introduction. If you've followed my channel, I print one of their miniatures in every video. They are another company who offer a low-cost subscription model for a monthly release of entire forces of miniatures for their myriad of games. But despite them growing in popularity over the last couple of years for their models, One Page Rules has existed long before 3D printing. By having a brand-agnostic rule set, you can play any of their games using models from whatever wargame force you've already been building. If you and your mate want to play Space Marines versus Stormtroopers, have at it. If you want to play with paper standees or rocks, do it. Now, they only had a small half booth this year, and I think the main draw for them was to meet with all of the other creators there, yours truly included, and I'll have more to show on that in a future video, as I'm currently booking my next plane tickets for next week, having just arrived home 3 days ago. I hope that next year they have a larger booth like Loot Studios and have some tables demoing their games with a variety of models. And, if I can hope, I'd love to see them run their own version of a Golden Demon too, you know, for the One Page Rules model painters. But speaking of painting competitions, CreatureCaster once again hosted the Resin Beast competition at their booth. And, well, there's no easy way to say it, this was incredible. Not only was this for CreatureCaster models, but for models from some of their partners too, like Parabellum, Bestiarum and Eldritch Foundry. Both resin molded and 3D printed models were allowed, and if you can take some time to tear yourself away from Space Marines, you'll quickly find some of the best painted and most interesting models at the convention within these cabinets. It was great to see so much more variety in painting competitions, and I managed to briefly see some of the award ceremony before our taxi arrived for the plans we'd made that evening. Now, I hope that next year this grows even bigger, and there were some great prizes to be won too. The only thing I think it seemed were missing were photos of the winners' models during the ceremony and some trophies, which I'm sure people would have loved to have had displayed at their home. Also in 3D printing was Reese from My Mini Factory. He was wandering around meeting with various people and creators within the industry. Again, My Mini Factory, you know them. If you like minis and 3D printing, it's like the default place you go. Again, I'm hoping to work with these guys over the coming months, so keep an eye out for that. And also, well, there was me. I was there, and I met so many wonderful people who knew the channel and came up to say hi. So if you are going to one of these events, don't be afraid, I don't bite. Feel free to come up and say hello at any point. I am generally a bit more on the extrovert side of the introvert spectrum, but that's the good thing about these conventions. If you are sat at home and, you know, your hobby is being trapped in whatever basement or dark room you're in order to paint your models, well, Adepticon is the place where the introverts get to be extroverts. We can talk for hours about the same thing that we love and enjoy every minute of it. See, it turns out you're not weird, you're not a loner, just nobody around you cares about the things that matter to you. We're all at Adepticon. Come and join us. Anyway, as I was saying, I was there. That's obvious. But the relation to resin printing in this video was twofold. One is that Wargamer is now available in the US, so Artis Opus allowed me a whole corner of their booth to promote that and show off models printed with it from all the creators I've mentioned earlier in this video. And I'd also brought some Space Marine heads that I'd printed to do dry brushing demos on, but these got taken by other artists. Not these specific ones, but we had great painters at the booth too, like Eric Swanson and Will Hahn, who were painting their models to their typical god tier standard and answering any questions attendees had. And we were also joined by Neil Hollis for half a day for the same reason. Neil is last year's Slayer Sword winner and this year's gold winner for 40k single miniature. Neil also discreetly painted Ross's and Knob on the side of the model I originally planned for this video. And he thinks it's funny, but now I have an original Neil Hollis painted model, which I may auction off for charity. Haha, Neil, joke's on you. Seriously though, Neil is one of the nicest guys you can meet in real life, and honestly, it is not difficult to champion that man as a winner in the Golden Demon competition. But what I also loved is, back to 3D printing again, we had Steve Garcia join us and I got to sit with him for almost a whole day and pick his brain on painting techniques while he took one of the 3D printed helmets and created one of the best and most original paint jobs I've ever seen, including an awesome eye reflection. And all of this was freehand. There was no reference photos, nothing. He did all this from his own memory and experience of painting models to this standard. Wow. And I can't finish this video without mentioning the incredible, the awesome, and the smouldering James Taro, who joined us at the booth to promote his plinths. And if you're in the UK, Taro Model Maker is pretty much the default place that people recommend for model plinths. And whilst these aren't 3D printed, he does use prints in his production process before parts are then cleaned, and he creates masters in order to resin cast. Again, solid guy, 10 out of 10, would recommend. I honestly love that 3D printing has really started to make its way into this hobby, and with printers being more accessible now than ever before, it's growing leaps and bounds and shows no signs of slowing down. Already this niche of how to create things in our hobby is big enough to bring STL companies to events like this with some of the largest booths there. Competitions not only allowing but even encouraging the use of 3D printed models. Heck, even this year's Golden Demon Slayer Sword winner has 3D scanned and printed components in order to create that piece. Adepticon, as always, was amazing, and having done a few cons now, I really need to thank the organisers of this one for helping out every step of the way. But I want to say, I think 2024 is the year that 3D printing truly planted its flag in the ground, and love it or hate it, it exists now, and it opens up a world of options at significantly more affordable prices than pre-produced resin or plastic. This whole movement seems so relative to the same things we saw at the start of the digitization of music and video. It's like being at the start of the MP3 or digital video revolutions, but for miniatures and models. It's only going to grow, and I can't wait to see what we get next year. What do you want to see at events like this? Please let me know down in the comments. How do you see the 3D printing community growing and getting more normalized as we move forward? I want to say thanks to Artis Opus for once again having me and flying me to this event, and the team are a great bunch of guys, including Byron himself, Rick from AO who went with us last year, Ed who runs the events for AO, and this time we were joined by Jeff from the painting phase. And if you want to hear more about our time there, the somewhat unfiltered version, then please check out the painting phase and watch their video on the event. Thanks to you for watching, and to our members for being patient, as we have had a couple of extra long videos this month which has delayed things from its typical schedule. Until next time, you had me at hello. Fohammer out.